following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Box score from Nathan's at the Old Garden on 49th Street. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and we've got a panel of folks to talk to the man, Hal Bock. But first, let me introduce that panel. It is David Hubler.
Hello there.
David. And Alan Blumpkin.
Hello there.
And I'm Ralph Tycho. And George is not with us this evening, but we'll be back next week. And I get to ask the question, what's the score, Hal?
Well, tonight I thought we would discuss two items. First of all, the sad report from California, your state, that Tom Seaver is suffering from dementia and retiring from public life. 74 years old, and he is forever the face of the New York Mets. They called him the franchise with good reason, and it's a sad story. A lot of the Mets of that era, of that 1969 Miracle Mets team, have gone through difficult times. Ed Kranepool is waiting for a kidney transplant. Buddy Harrelson is fighting Alzheimer's. Don Clendenin and Tommy Agee have passed away. Ed Charles also passed away recently. So it's a difficult time. As you get older, you recognize that no matter how great an athlete you are or were, Father Time catches up with you. So anyway, I thought that was a rather sad turn of events in the last week. And it's unfortunate because this is the 50th anniversary of the 1969 Miracle Mets, and they're planning a lot of events, and unfortunately, Seaver, who was the cornerstone of that team, will not be able to attend. So it's unfortunate. That was the first thing I wanted to bring up. And the second thing was I noticed that LeBron James overtook Michael Jordan for fourth place in the NBA scoring annals. And I'm curious about what the panel thinks about James versus Jordan. If they were both coming out of school at the same time, eligible for the draft at the same time, who would you pick and why? I'd like to know what you guys think about that. I have some numbers here which I'd like to throw at you, but I'd like to start that discussion about who would you select in the draft if you had to choose between Michael Jordan and LeBron James. That's my thought.
Great question. That brings me back to the old Wilt versus Russell debate.
Same deal. That's right. That's right.
No winner in a debate like that, but terrific. Start with Al Blumpkin.
Yeah, excuse me. That's a very difficult question. I really am not prepared for. The one thing is they don't play the same position. It's not like a Chamberlain Russell or a Oscar Robertson, Jerry West type of question, or to some extent the Magic Johnson, Larry Bird type of question. I would have to go with Jordan, because Jordan came to kill. Yeah, they draft when he was playing, they draft some hotshot backcourtmen who would make some statements, and Jordan would just, eat him up alive. Because I would go, because James to me he's too mercurial. He's his last couple of moves, especially this last one to the Lakers, has not turned out very well. I do think that Jordan basically should not have come back to play with the Wizards of the way he did. But LeBron is just he's too fresh in my mind, and his jumping around the way he did from Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland to the Lakers has really, I think, taken a lot of the gloss off of him.
David, what did you think?
Well, if I had my choice of when LeBron James jumped from high school into the NBA,
yes, he did.
I thought that was a ridiculous thing to do, and I thought he was big enough and strong enough, but I thought he was just too immature. I didn't think he would fit in. I thought he'd be wasting a couple of years, so I would have gone with Jordan too. Jordan had a fairly good college career, which was a good building block to go into, which is really what the Division I schools are these days, the building blocks for the NBA. So I would have definitely gone with Jordan, and I think, as Alan said, he stayed with the team. I agree too that going to the Wizards was not a great move, but LeBron going back and forth, and sort of like a guy with his basketball trying to find a court that he could play on, you know.
Right. Not only that, but it's curious that his latest jump to the Lakers has not worked out well at all. The Lakers are probably not going to make the playoffs. And
yeah, that's funny, isn't it? Yeah.
He's been criticized widely out there in California for his play and for some of the shenanigans that he has pulled. And but Ralph, I'm curious about your thoughts between Jordan and LeBron.
Well, I'm an old New York Knickerbocker fan, and as a Knickerbocker fan, the best teams they had since Jerry Lucas days was the Patrick Ewing teams, and he killed. You said it so well, Al Blumpkin. He just had a fury in the big games, and he was in a zone that I can equate to Barry Bonds, and only him. When he got in that zone, he was unbelievable. And because he beat the Knicks, and I really haven't followed basketball since those days as closely as I did, I'll go with Jordan until somebody gives me definitive reason.
I must tell you, it's a clean sweep because I'm a Jordan man as well, and the numbers support all four of us. I have the numbers in front of me. LeBron James overtook Jordan last week and became the fourth highest scorer in NBA history. He's in his 16th season. Jordan played 10 seasons. So that's 6 more seasons. Jordan won 5 MVPs. LeBron has won 4. Jordan has 6 championship rings, all of them with the Chicago Bulls. LeBron has 3. Jordan was a Finals MVP 6 times. James 3 times. Jordan won 10 scoring titles. Mm-hmm. You know how many LeBron James has won? 1. Jordan was all defense 9 times. LeBron was 6 times. So the numbers support us in favoring Jordan in that matchup. But I think most of today's generation doesn't know how great a player Michael Jordan really was. He just dominated the game like nobody else, and it's interesting. I'll give you another challenge, gentlemen. You're all so bright. Let me give you another challenge. We know now that Jordan is the 4th highest scorer in NBA history. I'm sorry, James, just ahead of Michael Jordan. Who are the 3 players ahead of LeBron James right now? Anybody got any guesses?
Yeah, Kareem and Wilt, 2 of them.
No, wrong. You got 1 right. Oh. You got Kareem right. Kareem is the highest scorer in NBA history. 38,000 points, more than 38,000 points. But you'll never guess who number 2 and number 3 are. I don't think. Anybody got any guesses?
Jerry West?
Guy from
No, it has to be somebody played in the 3-point era.
No, it doesn't, but it probably is.
You'll never guess. You will never guess.
Dominique Wilkins?
Who?
Dominique Wilkins.
No, nice try, but that's wrong. I'll give you the names because I feel for you guys. Kareem had 38,000 points. Right behind him at 36,000 points, just a shade under 37, was the mailman, Karl Malone.
Wow.
I was shocked when I saw that.
Yeah.
And third on the list, Kobe Bryant at 33,000.
Yeah.
And I thought
that
was a surprise to me as well.
That makes sense. He had a lot of threes, yeah.
But still,
you know, I couldn't think of his name, but when we play this tape back, I said the guy who played with Stockton, and it was Malone.
Yeah.
Oh, you did say that?
Yeah, I did a few minutes ago, and but I couldn't think of Malone, and I didn't put it in question form, and that's another bad week. Alex Trebek, who's kept me entertained for 30 years.
You're right.
Is stricken with a horrible, can't even think of what it is.
Pancreatic. Stage 4 pancreatic.
That's horrible. And Harry Howell passed away.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was on paper yesterday. He was 86.
That was also a sad day because I knew Harry when I worked for the Rangers. He was a gentleman, just the nicest guy, a class act all the way. And he took a lot of abuse from the fans because they like the rock'em sock'em defenseman. It's interesting that Harry Howell's defense partner was Louis Fontinato.
Right.
He's a rock'em sock'em guy. And Harry was more of a classic player. And but Harry loved Louis, and Harry carried Louis's picture around in his wallet years after Louis had been traded away. So I found that amusing. But
Hal didn't Harry Howell pair up with for a while a defenseman named Alan Stanley, who they used to call Sonia in the Garden, and then he went to the Bruins and became a Hall of Famer.
Sure. Well, Harry's a Hall of Famer.
Oh, that was in the very...
Yeah, I know, yeah. But they used to call Alan Stanley Sonia after Sonia Henney. Yeah.
Right.
Well, they used to yell at Harry Howell, with your
Harriet.
pocketbook.
They called Harry Harriet out here, that the bleacher guy, or the bleachers.
Oh, yeah, the balcony guys. They yelled at him, Harry, hit him with your pocketbook. And, Harry Howell was just a very classic defenseman. He played, he never was out of position. He was always there, where he was supposed to be. And he, as I said before, he was not a rock'em sock'em, knock down, put him up kind of a guy. That was not his style. But there are other defensemen who played in that era who were the same way. The Rangers traded for and made Doug Harvey their coach. Doug Harvey was the same kind of a defenseman, very classic.
And he took a lot of heat as well.
Yeah, he did. But
he was one of the Montreal greats of his day. We expected to turn things around with that trade. And
I remember that too. Yes.
Didn't quite work out that well.
Well, Harvey was a member of the Canadian team that forced a change in the rules of the NHL. There had been a time when, if you were on a power play, you were shorthanded. The other team was shorthanded for 2 minutes. You were on that power play for 2 minutes. You could score 4 goals in that 2 minutes, and the Canadians could because
Marcel
they had Boom Jeffrey on.
Marcel Paillet was the Ranger goalie when that happened. They got 5 goals on a penalty. Montreal. I remember watching that.
Who was the goalie?
Marcel Paillet.
Marcel Paillet, okay.
Look him up, Paille, I think the way.
Yeah, it's French.
I remember watching that on TV, and it was like that.
Rules. They said.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, they were on a power play for 2 minutes and had 5 goals.
Well, they changed the rule, and they made once you score in the power play, the power play is over. He was a member of that Canadian team that forced that change. So, he was a terrific defenseman. And he came to the Rangers. He was a player coach for the Rangers, which is never really a good idea, I don't think. Certainly not in hockey. And the Rangers made the playoffs once. They finished fourth one year, I think his second year, and that was a playoff berth for them. But Harry Howell, you couldn't ask for a steadier defenseman, and the fans didn't appreciate him as they should have. But ultimately, his number is retired. It hangs from the roof of Madison Square Garden, and he's in the Hall of Fame. So God bless him. You know, he was a great player.
How they said in the obits I read on him that he was regarded as a tremendous person.
He was. I went to work for the Rangers, and at that time, and Alan will remember this, at that time many of the Rangers lived in a community called Glen Oaks out in Queens. And my parents lived in Glen Oaks. I grew up in the Bronx, but I lived in Glen Oaks briefly. And my mother didn't know up from down about hockey or sports or anything like that. All she knew was that I had a job. I had a job in hockey. I had a job with the Rangers. And she bumped into Harry Howell in the supermarket one day. He was wearing his Ranger jacket. And she said to him, "You were with the Rangers?" And Harry Howell said, "Yeah, I am." She said, "You know my son, Hal Bock?" Harry said, "Yeah, I know your son." And she was just thrilled that she had made this connection.
Wow.
With one of the players.
Because I grew up in Belrose.
Well, I figured that because you went to Martin Van Buren.
Yeah, which is right across from Glen Oaks. Glen Oaks was on the other side of Union Turnpike.
I know the geography.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where my wife is from. She went to Van Buren, too. From Belrose.
There you go.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, Van Buren played Newtown in the Police Athletic League or the whatever.
PSAL, Public School Athletic League, the high school.
PSAL,
yeah.
Right.
Van Buren made the semifinals in my last year there, and they played in the Garden, and they were beaten by Wingate with Roger Brown, and the other semifinal was between. They got beaten by Columbus. And the other semifinal was Wingate with Roger Brown against Boys High with Connie Hawkins.
What year was that?
1960.
Wow.
And boys beat the hell out of Wingate. And the finals, we lost our third place game, and Columbus slowed it down, and boys beat them 21-15.
How many points did you score in that game, Alan?
0.
Well,
I love the name of that school now, Boys and Girls High.
Yeah.
As if there could be someone else that would be going to the high school. You know.
Yeah.
It's such a stupid name. I think it's an embarrassment.
It's a huge building, huge complex. I used to drive past there all the time on my way to Long Island University, and it's a huge school.
Yeah,
Takes up a couple of blocks.
Well, there were only about, my graduating class was 1,250, and there were 4,000 students on three sessions.
It's an old.
Hal, do you remember a goalie by the name of Al Rollins?
Sure. Played for the Blackhawks.
I think the Rangers borrowed him at one time as a backup.
That I don't remember.
Okay, but
that I don't remember. But I know he was an NHL goalie.
Right, I didn't remember him with the Blackhawks, but I did remember him as a very short-term role player. Gump was hurt or something like that, and they
the era of the bare-faced goalie and the helmetless players.
Yeah.
No helmets, no masks,
and no teeth.
And no teeth. Yeah, that's true.
And some even when they put helmets on, insisted on grandfathering the no helmet idea.
Yes.
Which I never thought was all that bright an idea. You probably look better with no helmet, but if the league decides that it's too dangerous not to wear a helmet, and now you're up against players who have their helmets and you don't, I thought those guys were special.
Well,
the baseball, when they tried to bring it into baseball, helmets that they were ridiculed. And Branch Rickey was the first one when he was running the Pirates to make it mandatory for his players.
I know there were helmet liners before actual helmets.
Yes, there were. You know, when they outlawed the spitball, which was in the 1920s, they grandfathered some of there were pitchers whose only pitch was the spitball. So a guy like Burley Grimes was grandfathered and allowed to continue to throw the spitball in the era when the spitball was banned from baseball.
He was the last legal spitballer.
Burley Grimes.
Yeah, he finished in 1934. He was the last legal spitballer. Of course, then you had the pitchers like Preacher Rowe and Lou Burdett and Gaylord Perry, who were constantly accused of throwing it.
And probably did.
Yeah.
Well, there's a famous episode in the World Series, the 1941 World Series. Hugh Casey had Tommy Henrich struck out on a spitball, and Mickey Owen, the catcher, could not handle the pitch. Pitch got away from him, and Henrich went to first base, beat the throw to first base, and the Yankees rallied and won the game. And Casey always insisted it was just a fastball, but I talked to Mickey Owen, and Mickey Owen said he threw a spitter that day. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, my favorite story was when in 1961, Mantle and Ford were out there for an All-Star game, and they got there a day early, and they went golfing, and they charged everything to Horace Stoneham. And Stoneham brought them in the next day. It was a few $100, and Stoneham says, "I'll let you guys off if Ford can strike out Mays in the All-Star game." And Ford in the All-Star games before, Ford usually got clobbered by Mays. So the story was that Ford got 2 strikes on Mays and loaded it up with a spitball, and he threw a spitball out to Mays, and Mays struck out, and this Mantle was jumping up and down in center field. Nobody could understand why.
Well, of course, Elston Howard, the great catcher for the Yankees, was famous for scuffing the ball for Ford on his belt buckle.
And Ford used to cut his wedding ring, balls with his wedding ring.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So there's been hijinks in baseball forever. That's why I have to laugh when people say, "Oh my God, they stole the signs." Well, wait a minute. They've been stealing signs since the game was invented. The old thing was, it ain't cheating if you don't get caught. That's right.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's part of the gamesmanship of the game.
Yeah.
And it's gone on forever, and it'll continue to go on. Although they're doing all they can to change our game, I want you to know. It's unfortunate that George isn't here tonight, but some of the hijinks that are going on, they're changing in the. There's an independent league I think it's called the Atlantic League.
Yes.
And we have a team here on Long Island called the Ducks who play in that league.
Yeah.
And they're using that league to try out a whole slew of changes to the game of baseball. They're changing the distance between the plate and the pitcher's mound. We all know that they're putting a runner on second base at the start of extra innings, which I think is just ludicrous. They're doing all kinds of stuff. They're putting in the 20-second clock between pitches. They're putting in the three batter minimum for relief pitchers. So they're changing the game. And how this will all work out, I don't know. And how much of it will filter into Major League Baseball, I don't know. But it's not something I endorse or embrace.
Just that they're thinking of changing the distance between home plate and the pitcher's mound is absolutely, not only is it ludicrous, it screws up every record book we've ever had.
Well, they did this constantly in the 19th century. Of course, the last time they pushed the mound back to where it is was 1893.
Right.
So you're talking about over 100 years of
I know
history.
that, yeah. And there were pitchers who couldn't adjust to it.
And of course, in 1968,
they lowered the mound, but the mound never. It was the same distance. They just lowered the mound, and they had this very wide strike zone those years.
Yes, that's true. But that, the size of the strike zone, that's so subjective. Oh, that's another thing. We're going to have robots for umpires. The umpire behind home plate will have an earpiece, and in the earpiece, the robot will say, "That was a strike," and the umpire will say, "Strike one." That's terrible. You can't do that to this game, but they are. So,
isn't that embarrassing for the umpire to have to? It
certainly is. I'm surprised the umpires aren't squawking about it. But they consider it progress. I don't. The old saying: "If it ain't broke, don't fix it."
Yeah.
I was watching a basketball game a couple of weeks ago, and then they in the last 2 minutes last minute of the game, that there was a call that they had to go to the monitor for, and they spent over 5 minutes at the monitor, and they came out of it with knocking 1/10 of a second off the game clock.
That's another thing.
That's crazy. It's insane.
In all sports, we have replays in all sports that delay the game. In my view, you have an umpire, you have a referee. There's a human element to the game, and you have to respect that. The game is the game, but they are determined to
say nothing of the shifting that delays the pace of the game.
Oh my God! Don't even start me on that. I think that's part of the Atlantic League rules. You've got to have two men on each side of second base.
Yeah, you're right.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't have to make that a rule. I mean, that's common sense, in my view.
Right, well, maybe if one or two are logical like that, maybe they could adopt that because it ruins the flow of the game on the radio. And I listen to the radio in the background whatever game is on, and it just takes away from it. Because
it's not great for the people in the ballpark either.
And it's not great for traditional plays. A beautiful double play is made when there are two people involved.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And if there's no one on that side of the infield to come over to cover, if you know what I mean, it just screws it up.
Bryce Harper just signed a fancy contract with the Phillies, and he came to bat in an exhibition game, and I'm not sure who they were playing, but whoever they were playing, they put 4 outfielders against him, and the other guys were on the right side of the infield. He said he'd never seen anything like it. He didn't know what to make of it. I mean,
I heard a very good story about that. I was listening to NPR Sunday, and they were doing this very intellectual piece about how ball players get themselves prepared emotionally for the game, and they and not just baseball, but several other sports as well. And one of the people they had on, and they were talking about too how your athleticism sort of wanes as you get older. And one of the former athletes that they had on the show was Mark Teixeira, and one of the psychologists or whoever it was asked. He said, "Well, listen, let me ask you this. The last couple of years of your career, you didn't have great years. Do you attribute that more to your physical decline, or do you consider more of that to the fact that they were using the shift against you?" And Teixeira says, "Well, it was like 90%, my physical abilities were really going." And I'm thinking to myself, you dummy, everyone in the stadium was yelling for him to hit to left field, to drop a bunt down the third baseline, and he never, ever did it. It wasn't his failure to maintain his high athletics. It was just the fact that he either couldn't hit the left field or he just didn't want to.
Right.
Well, that's
didn't
the
want
problem.
to give in.
They lack the ability to hit the other way. Why that is, I can't tell you. But in the 1890s, there was a player named Willie Keeler. Willie Keeler.
Yeah.
And Willie Keeler used to say, hit them where they ain't. Common sense tells you to hit them where they ain't. And if they ain't on the left side of the infield, that's where you ought to hit it. So,
well, even Mantle every once in a while dropped a bunt down the third baseline just to sort of, keep the guy. And they certainly weren't shifting on him.
No,
and he was a damn good bunter, too.
Yes, he was.
So why didn't he bunt?
Have that drag.
Oh, he did.
Yeah,
Mantle?
Left-handed, he'd be out of the batting box.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, of course. He was a power hitter who knew enough to lay one down,
That's right. And the fans didn't come to Yankee Stadium to see him bunt, I'll tell you that.
That's what Babe Ruth said.
The Yankees win. And if his bunt helped them win, that was all they needed to know.
That's right.
It's as simple as that. It's the
Babe
game.
Ruth
It's the game. Respect the game. That was you're always taught. Respect the game.
That's right.
And they don't respect the game. They're busy reinventing the game, and that's a terrible, terrible thing, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I mean,
all right, let's end on a positive note, guys. I'm going to go around the room. What is it about this upcoming baseball season that you find to be pleasant? You're a Pirate fan, Al. Let's start with you. You have some hopes for this year.
Yeah, well, they didn't make very many, ups or downs. They have very many ups and downs during the winter. I mean, they signed a number of fringe free agents. They let Josh Harrison and Jordy Mercer go. If their pitching is decent, and it was last year, the last part of last year, unfortunately, they're in a division with Milwaukee, the Cubs, and St. Louis and Cincinnati. But I think they can compete to some extent. But especially after they went through that 20-year losing streak, everything to me is they finish over 500, and anything above that to me is gravy.
Okay. David, how about those Yankees?
Every sports writer I've read raves about their bullpen, except that they're having trouble. Betances is having a bit of trouble. Even so, they're saying the Yankees have probably the best bullpen in baseball. The problem with them, I think, they still need one really good starting pitcher. Unless they're the 4 or 5 that they have now have outstanding years, and I'm not sure they all will. I don't know whether CC Sabathia will be able to hold up for a whole year again. It's a bit iffy, and I was surprised that they didn't really go after one of the top flight free agents available. But I think otherwise, I think they're in good shape. Look, they won 100 games last year. It's not as if they folded. It's just that the Red Sox won 8 more games than they did. But I think it's going to be very, very close again this year between the two of them. And from what I've been reading, the Orioles are just going to bring up the rear in that division again. Angelos doesn't seem to want to do anything at all to improve that franchise.
How about what's your score on Mitch?
Well, I find it interesting that David believes that the Yankees' strength is in the bullpen and their weakness is on starting pitchers, because the Mets, it's just the opposite. The Mets may have the best rotation because they have 3 terrific starting pitchers at the top of the rotation. The Cy Young Award winner Jacob deGrom and Noah Syndergaard and Zach Wheeler, and they've had really
Matz hasn't been all that bad when he's healthy.
That's right, and they've gotten 2 really good outings from their number 4 and number 5 pitchers, Steven Matz and Jason Vargas. So if those guys are good, they could trot out a really quality starting pitcher every day, that'd be a real boost. However, our bullpen has cracks in it, and they did pick up the best closer in baseball, Edwin Diaz, and hopefully he can close out some games. They brought back Familia, Yoris Familia. He can be a setup man. So they may be okay. But being the Mets, somehow they'll find a way to not be okay. That's my history with them.
That's the old Met fan spirit that I love, and it's pragmatism. After 55 years or something like that, we know better than to be too high.
Absolutely.
But we can't help it. It's like a car wreck sometimes. You know, you want to look away, but you just have to look, get a look. What's happening now, that type of thing. It's been a ride. Hey, I just want to take a moment to reiterate what you were talking about at the beginning on how sad it is that all our heroes are going too soon. Let's put it that way.
Excuse me.
So Tom Seaver and Buddy Harrelson, I'm sorry you guys are going through that, and Ed Kranepool, and to say nothing of those who have passed so all too young. All right. God bless you guys. Stay healthy. You heard God bless from an atheist. I don't know where in the hell that came from, but please stay healthy and rest in peace to those who...
Ralph, can I talk to you for a minute offline?
I'll push the button. Yes, I will.
Okay.
And there we go. Thank you, gentlemen. And
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. It's the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. And the panel has been Alan Blumpkin and David Hubler and myself, and the man has been Hal Bock. See you next week, guys.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Okay.
The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.